200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon, so now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson. Like
one bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody.
Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more. But it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
The Cuvee Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvee.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head and Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, welcome to another live edition of the BCSN SportsWrap. I'm Brian Fulford. That's AD Drew. It's a pleasure to be on the air live with you this Sunday evening as we get a little bit closer to the start of the 2022 football season. Colleges are Our college camps are opening up, and it's just an exciting time. Drew, how you doing this afternoon, or I guess this evening, depending upon where you're at in America?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, my brother. You know, we got separation week is going to be occurring in about another week to 10 days for a lot of these college athletes.
Explain Separation Day. I'm not familiar with the concept.
You know, we've got all these quarterback battles, and you don't know who the starting wide receiver is and who the starting running back is, yada, yada, yada. You know, most schools will have a live scrimmage this upcoming Saturday or Sunday, and you'll start to see some separation, and then you'll start seeing jobs. This weekend will be separation weekend. The following weekend will be jobs won or lost weekend, if I'm making sense to everybody.
Okay.
Or jobs solidified.
Okay. And if you're Alabama State, Howard, Florida A&M, you've already started camps. I know, of course, Florida A&M has already started their camps. They had their first scrimmage this past weekend. Have not
So
checked
move
in
that timeline up a week.
Exactly. Move that timeline up a week. And anybody else playing on weeks? Yeah, Florida Memorial and
Florida
Edward
Memorial
Waters
and
are
Edward
playing.
Waters.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see if they've started or how far into their camps they are, but obviously, you know, they will be playing on week 0, and then everybody else, you've seen camps, you've seen moving day. If you were watching Carlos Brown's show yesterday, right here on the Black College Sports Network, we ran the video of Southern coming into camp, and then those were the scenes. You know, a lot of credit to those schools that were able to put together some social media video packages, or just some photos or whatever, the story and the coverage of their football teams coming back to camp. So you know, I'm probably least likely to know what's happening on Instagram, so I'll be honest, I haven't checked my IG enough to know what's happening out there in terms of Instagram.
When the last time you checked your IG, period?
Unfortunately, too long this morning. So yeah, just
okay, then answer that question.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's one of those things in the morning that I have to cut myself from doing. But anyway, not enough about me. But I saw a comment there that yeah, they have Florida Memorial has already started camp. So good. The week 0 teams are on the already started. So that's good to see. So
And
want to thank.
and that looks like that came from our #1 Florida Memorial super fan who watches our show, Wild Man Will, our buddy Will. They're down Florida Memorial alumnus, musician, former band member at Florida Memorial.
Yeah, that's gonna be that's gonna be the game. Gonna be we'll get a chance to talk about that and some of the week 0 games coming up here, and we'll get into more in depth talking about that. But want to thank everybody for watching us on YouTube and Facebook, and checking us out on the BCSN Pod Zone. If you have not had a chance to go and download the BCSN Pod Zone, please do so. Fresh content being loaded up practically every day. And I say practically because I end up being the person to upload it. So usually I'm on point about uploading new content every day. But obviously all of our shows on the Black College Sports Network, our show, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the O&G, you'll get some features from Charles Edmond with Brave Talk from the Alcorn State perspective, and of course Carlos Brown's show. So that's just some, and more will be coming. Hopefully we'll have a few more shows to add on to. So if you have not checked out the BCSN Pod Zone, you can find it everywhere you listen and download: Spotify, Google, iHeart, all of those great locations. Just want to encourage you, wherever you are, to give us a rating and subscribe, and that way you'll get the notifications, of course, whenever they are released. Well, Drew, as we get into talking about some of the events of the past week, I guess let's start with, I think the bigger news has happened in the non-HBCU world in terms of sports, and I thought, given the fact that you and I are so fondly appreciative of the game of basketball and everything that the game of basketball means to us, as we are both coaches and we've spent time coaching and watching the game and trying to teach the game to younger people, we've got to talk about two things from two different angles as it relates to the world of basketball. And the first big story is the passing of the GOAT, possibly the greatest champion that the sport has ever known, and that is Bill Russell, who passed away this past week at the age of 88. And many great things have been said about Bill Russell over, I don't know, the last 3 days. And a lot of it has been spotlighting his work off the field. Just reading a bit from a summary from the website thisweek.com. Bill Russell, who died this week at 88, continued his activism through his life, marching with Martin Luther King Jr., protesting the murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers in Mississippi, creating an integrated basketball clinic for kids. Like Jackie Robinson, he had an outsized impact on society and inspired generations of black athletes to stand up against injustice. Why some fans complain then and now: must black players inject politics into sports? Can the arena serve as an escape from the real world? Escaping ugly racial realities, however, is a luxury not available to those who must live with them. Black athletes and musicians, Russell once said, quote, are accepted as entertainers, but we are not accepted as people. His legacy is his insistence that he and other African Americans be seen as persons, as equal human beings on and off the court. Bill Russell would not be denied. Drew, your thoughts on Bill Russell, and is he the greatest champion in sports?
When you say champion, it's like overstating the obvious, Brian. The man won. He- let me put this into perspective, and I don't think people can really understand this. Could not play as a freshman in college because freshmen did not play in the 50s, in the 60s, up until the 70s. So you only had 3 varsity years of basketball, of any sport in college. So for a 16-year period, Brian, sophomore year of college, junior year of college, senior year of college, and a 13-year NBA career, he won the last game 13 of those 16 years. 2 out of 3 in college, 11 out of 13 in the professional ranks. Throw in an Olympics in the midst of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? 21 winner take all games? 21 for 21 winner take all games?
Something
in the
like
finals?
That, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, overall, 21 winner take all games. So if you were going to beat him, you had to beat him before game 7.
Right.
So, I mean, this is an amazing...
The champion.
Yes, this is an amazing champion. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great graphic right there.
Let's look at another thing. MVPs. He won 5 MVPs. Now, let's think about the era in which he voted that he won the MVP. Players voted for the MVP. This was before the media and everybody else started voting for the MVP. Media did not start voting for the MVP until the 80s. So his peers said, despite all the points that Russell scored, despite everything that Mr. Basketball Jerry West did, and all the other players from that era, he was the most valuable, not the most impactful, the most valuable player. Your peers voted to you. I think the MVP award meant something more than that. Now, do you want me to step off the court, Brian?
Did they rename the MVP the Bill Russell Award?
The Finals
correct?
MVP.
The Finals MVP. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's fitting. That's what I thought. Okay. Sure. Yeah. I mean, because as much of a champion as he was in the on-court sense, he was that much of a champion off the court.
And that is correct. First of all, Bill Russell, before there was social justice, Bill Russell was doing civil rights movements before we even had a term for what he was doing. Bill Russell, the first African-American coach in any of the major 4 sports.
Player coach at that.
Bill Russell, first African-American manager or coach to win a championship. And just so happened to do it as a player coach. In the midst of being a coach in Boston, had the nerve, the galls to sit with Muhammad Ali when Muhammad Ali took his Vietnam stance. And everybody has seen that famous picture with Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, then Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and what was the track guy? From the 1968 Olympics. The one who put his fist in the air. I can't remember. Bobby Mitchell. Was it Bobby Mitchell?
There were 2. We're failing here amongst our peers.
But you know which one I'm talking.
I never try to talk about things that I'm going to forget unless I've done some research. So I'm gonna.
I did the research. That's the bad part. But this is why. This is why he was still coaching in the NBA and playing in the NBA.
Right.
Let's not forget in I believe it was 1960, when the Boston Celtics players could not eat in the same restaurants on the road
Because of Jim
with the
Rowe
rest of the
segregation.
teammates.
Yep.
And sleep in the same hotels. He took a stand and said, I will not play until we get this situation handled. And he did not play. Walked out of a game in Louisville, Kentucky. It was a preseason game, but walked out of a game in Louisville, Kentucky. And the reason I remember that is because the next night they were scheduled to play in St. Louis, Missouri for a preseason game. And speaking of St. Louis, Missouri, let's think of some of the places that he started his career playing. Okay, he played in Boston. Boston was probably one of the, at that point in time, was one of the more racist cities in the North. Syracuse, New York, Syracuse Nationals. Cincinnati, Ohio, Cincinnati Royals. Fort Wayne, Indiana, Fort Wayne Pistons. Minneapolis, Minnesota, for the Minneapolis Lakers. St. Louis, Missouri, for the St. Louis Hawks. New York, the New York Knicks. But probably the best place he probably played was Philadelphia, when the Philadelphia Warriors were there. And then, of course, you all can figure out what some of those teams moved to. The Pistons moved to Detroit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I could go on and on. I'm gonna let you get in before I come back to my coup de grace.
Well, I was gonna as we think about Russell, and again, we talk about the champions and the championships he's won. As we think about this generation, and you and I complain about this generation enough, but let's forward it 20 years and look at the next generation. Will Bill Russell be a forgotten legend to the next generation? I don't know what this generation currently, I bet if I took a poll of, I don't know, and I may do this, I may take a poll of 20, 50 young people at my school, and just yes or no, do you know who Bill Russell is? I don't know what percentage you think they may know who Bill Russell is, but forward it to the next generation, their kids. Will they know who Bill Russell is? Will he be the lost GOAT, so to speak, of the next generation?
All right, I'm going to put this in this term. What is the NBA championship trophy called?
The Larry O'Brien trophy. Yeah, named after a long gone dead commissioner.
Okay, how many young people know that? Why is it named the Larry O'Brien trophy?
Nerds like me only know that.
How many people know why it's called the Vince Lombardi trophy?
Good question. I'm hearing where you're going. So your point is that
they will know his name. They will know his name because of the trophy named after him. But they will not know the history of why the trophy was named after him. Mm-hmm. And speaking of, did you have something before I get to my next point?
No. Go ahead.
One thing, what was it? Last year we were mourning the death of John Thompson, the legendary Georgetown coach. Does everybody know that John Thompson was his backup center at Boston?
Nice.
In Boston.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Little known history fact
to Bill Russell. But here we go. Number 42 in baseball is retired for Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
Number 99 in hockey is retired for Wayne Gretzky.
Okay.
I think there should be a campaign to retire the number 6 in basketball for not only what he did on the court, not the points he scored, but what he did as far as championships. Like you said, he is the greatest winner. But for the social things that he did outside of the game for the man, Bill Russell, I think after the current generation of LeBron James and other people who wear the number 6, no one else should wear the number 6. And last thing, and I may get lamented on this one. Would Bill Russell be considered a role player today? Because he did not score. He did everything but score for his team. And could anybody be a player coach like he was? Because I couldn't see anybody in today's game being a player coach.
Okay, let me. I do think. Let me start with the player coach thing. I think players could be player coaches this year. I think I've heard
Would they
this
have
said
the
by other
respect?
people.
Would they get the respect from their teammates?
Certain
Because
guys would.
if the best scorer is a player coach, who you think he gonna call to play for?
Well, let me go
That's
there.
I think that's what made
Let
Russell
me just
so
say,
great.
for
I'm
example,
sorry.
LeBron James. If LeBron James were a player coach, I think he could be. Now, obviously, the thing about being a player coach, you have a team full of assistants around you, right? Now, I don't trust LeBron as a GM, but I think LeBron as a player, as a coach, I would trust. I think when Jason Kidd was a player in those final years, I believe he was still bumping around with the Nets. I think he could have been a player coach. Uh, he actually being a point guard. So what I'm saying is you probably need to
But
have
here's
somebody who is of the point guard ilk, somebody who sees the entire floor and everyone's role in it to be able to pull off the player coach.
Right. You know why Jason
And what
Kidd
was the preview?
would have succeeded, and why he was able to
Why?
go immediately from a player to a coach? Because I think he was a player one year and he coached the next year. Because
Yes.
he was,
yeah, you're right.
He was not a scorer. He was not the
yes.
primary person on offense. Yes, you're right. He saw the floor. He saw different things. But I think that's the difference. That's why as a person like, no disrespect to LeBron James, that's why I don't think he would fit that mold, because I think it would be hard to win his team over because of who he is offensively, if I'm even making any sense to anybody.
Yeah, I follow you. What was the other question? What was the previous question you asked? You asked
Should the number 6 be retired in basketball?
So I could go for that, and for a couple of reasons. One, I think the number 6. Look, what is it we as coaches were once told about AAU and jersey numbers, and even most high school associations have a rule about
you can't wear a number above 5.
0 to
5 for
5
either digit.
Yeah, and then exactly. So technically, the number 6 is already a rare number, I think. And I just did a quick until you get to the league, right? A matter of fact, thinking about it in college, how many guys actually wear the number 6 in college? I don't.
You can't. It's an illegal number.
Right. So 260 players have worn. I just did a quick search on basketballreference.com after you asked that question. So yes, 260 players have worn it. Most notably, probably the only other, there's probably a handful of guys here who have worn 6, but obviously the other dominant player who wore 6 was, of course, Julius Irving, who wore 6. As I do a quick scroll through names, I don't really come across any other real names. I mean, there's a couple. There's a handful of Hall of Famers.
Kenya Barton wore 6.
Yeah, I mean, you're going most famous names.
Yes.
Or
yeah,
more well-known names. I mean, Ben Wallace wore the number 6 for a few years. But in terms of Hall of Famers, Julius and Avery Johnson wore 6. I mean, if you talked about the greatest players to wear number 6, you'd probably go Bill Russell, then you go Julius Irving. Then you might go to somebody like Avery Johnson, and I'm just kind of scrolling through different names here. You might want to throw in there. I'm not going to say Andrew Bogut. No way. Tyson Chandler wore 6.
Yeah,
Well,
Tyson
LeBron. Well,
Chandler.
see, the thing with LeBron is LeBron wears 6 now, but he started at 23. So
And he's
LeBron,
won
I
6
guess you could
twice in
throw
his career. And he's won
I guess
23
you could throw
twice
him
in his
in the.
career.
I guess you could throw him in there in the mix as one of those players that have wore the number 6. So I think it could happen. I think what would be great is if the league cycled out the number 6, meaning beginning
Yes.
with we get after
Just like
this
they
group
did with
of
number
guys,
42 in baseball. If you
right?
if you
After
currently
this
have
group of
number
guys,
42 when they did it, that's why Mariano Rivera was the last person to wear number 42 in a major league jersey. Because he
then
had
we
it
can
when they
play the game
retired
and
the
see
number.
who would be. Yeah, we can play the game and say who's going to be the last guy to wear 6. Who will make it into their 10th year, 12th year in the league in the next 10 years, and then we say who's the last guy to wear number 6. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I think it could be. And surprisingly, you didn't mention the sport of football doesn't have a number that has been retired, but yeah, I think Bill Russell's number 6 should definitely be retired. So, again, we have to continue to remind young people about Bill Russell. We need to speak his name. I again, 13. You brought up a great stat there. 16 seasons, 13 championships. Do you know what
and pro.
college he went to? Do you remember the college that he went to?
University of San
Yeah.
Francisco, the Dons.
The Dons, exactly. There's a
Originally
great
from Louisiana.
There's a great trivia question for you. So if you want to throw that out, you guys who are watching, you want to stump some people at work tomorrow, stump them with that. 13 championships in 16 years, college and pro, and then ask them,
And
hey, do you remember? And an Olympic championship gold medal. So that's Bill Russell. Now let's transition from Bill Russell, one big man, to another dominant post player that's having a tough time in off the court, and that is Miss Brittney Griner, who news came down Friday morning as she appeared in a Russian court for sentencing. Of course, if by now you don't know why she's in a Russian jail, well, you need to crawl up from out under that rock. But yeah, sentencing. Now, when I first saw this report come up Friday morning, one of the first stories I read, which kind of made me drop my jaw, was when I read that the prosecutor or a prosecutor in Russia was recommending 9.5 years. And that was the first time, Drew, anyone had thrown a number out. And I just kind of was like, whoa, this is getting real. And then sure enough, maybe about 2 hours later, sentencing came out, and she was in fact sentenced to 9 years in a Russian jail. And if I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know how Russian jail works. I don't know if
I don't
there's
know how
time
Russian
off for good
jail
behavior.
was, but it just that you could ask just about anybody over the age of 40. I ain't gonna say anybody, but a number of people who over the age of 40 have spent at least one night in jail for something, or even not a night, a few hours in jail, and a few hours make you like, oh my God, can I be here for the rest of my life?
Right. So I empathize with anyone who spent an hour or two, but to know how long that she's been there, and to come to the hard cold reality that as it stands right now, she's there for at least another 9 maximum years. And while the whole politics of things plays out in the United States, I ran across an interesting article on a website. I think it's a Spanish sports related website, but the headline says Russia set conditions for Brittney Griner trade with the U.S. So of course there are back channel talks being discussed about Griner and another U.S. citizen that's being held in exchange for some Russian mercenary, arms dealer, something that is in U.S. Detainment, to some sort of trade for this person. But Russia seemed to have released it. Look, okay, so this article talks about the U.S. Secretary of State and the Russian Foreign Minister were both at a where were they? They were both in the same place this past weekend or this past week. Let's see, what was this for? This was the East Asia Summit that was taking place, the meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. They were both there, and there was a key quote here as it related to, this comes from the Russian foreign minister. His name is Sergei Lavrov, right? He says, in regards to this situation, he said Moscow was, quote unquote, ready to discuss a prisoner swap, but that the topic should only be discussed via a dedicated Russia-U.S. channel that U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to establish when they met in Geneva in June 2021. Here's the big quote. If the Americans again try to engage in public diplomacy and make loud statements about their intention to take certain steps, it's their business. I would even say their problem. Lavrov said the Americans often have trouble observing agreements on calm and professional work. So I hear all that and I'm reading, Drew, damn, all this that's going on outside, and no matter what your personal feelings are about this whole situation, obviously it sucks for Brittney Griner. You pray for her health and her mental health where she's at. But that to me tells me that Russia doesn't like y'all being all loud and talkative in these Twitter streets and on social media and in these World Summit meetings about Brittney Griner. And Russia's like, we're not going to talk to y'all until you all do it quietly the way supposedly we agreed on doing this. When you hear that quote, Drew, does it seem like America knows how to do that? Do you think there's any way that diplomacy would work out in her favor?
It's not that America, the leaders, don't know how to do it. It's that, let's just be real, the people like you and I, the journalists, are digging too much, and we have to know now the who, what, when, where, and why, instead of let's sit back, because we don't, and it's a damned if you do, it's a damned if you don't, because if you don't say something, people are afraid that we will forget about Brittney Griner and she'll just sit over there and rot. But if you put too much pressure and try to find out too much information, and then you leak that information, now the person who you're talking to is pissed off. Perfect example, Brian. We deal with athletics, we deal with other things. You know how you've always got that one donor who will write you a check for anything or pay for anything for your program, as long as you don't say who they are, because they don't want everybody else coming to them and asking for that money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, here. You need how much for this? Okay, here's the $500 that you need for those four kids' shoes or whatever it is. Just don't let nobody know I gave it to you. And it's not that you're doing anything illegal or cheating. They just don't want no one to know their business.
Sure.
This is kind of along those same lines. And for an athlete, for Brittney Griner, if there was ever a time that you wanted to be traded, we're going to put this in an athletic term. This is the time that you wanted to be traded. You know it's not going to be for a player to be named later, so you telling them, please package whatever you have to do to get me out of here. Forget what Kevin Durant is talking about and everybody else is talking about on trades. This is the most important trade for an athlete that we've had in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like as I've listened to various this, and while one part of me is definitely sympathetic to what's happened, I also think in all of this, we've lost the messaging of what could be also discussed in this. And then maybe maybe someone will say, "Oh, it's not the right time or too soon or no one's thought."
Well,
There's never a good
I'm gonna
time.
see if you
There's
go
never
where
a
I,
good
where I
time.
would go on that.
Well,
But go
I'm
ahead.
going to go about the messaging that I think is being lost is that when you travel internationally, when you travel to another country, making sure you know the laws, making sure that you know you're not giving them a reason to detain. I get it. People say, yes, she forgot, she made a mistake. That's what she said. That's probably what happened. I get it. But there's sometimes you just don't want to make a mistake. You really want to double and triple check. And I think we ought to also, while we express our empathy and our sympathies, we should also be reminding travelers, especially travelers that are the darker complexion, that also might stand out. And obviously, I mean, she stands out not only as a
She's
celebrity,
6'7". She stand out.
she's 6'7" with tats. She stands out. So I mean, that's uncomfortable. People don't want to hear that because people want to think life's not fair.
And
I'm not on
in a
team
place where
fair.
her lifestyle is not supported, also.
Yeah, so I'm not team fair here. So back up. I'm not saying life is fair. So let's just understand that life is not fair. So if you know all those things going in, we have to be hyper aware of the situation. And I think we're not hearing that messaging being talked about. We can talk about diplomacy and trading. You can talk about what we're trading her for and who we're trading her for and all these other things. And yes, she's being used as a political pawn, but at the same time, I know this: if I go outside of the United States, Drew, man, I'm making sure everything is clean. I have nothing extra that might get a sniff from a dog or a security check or whatever, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I think I don't travel international. I'd love to hear from people who do travel internationally. How do you prepare yourself? Do you know the laws? So I just wonder, are we missing the messaging? What lessons can be learned from this situation, Drew?
Well, number one, here in America, your celebrity can buy you certain things, be it physically buy it or just give you certain passes. If you're a celebrity, and how many times celebrities get pulled over, speeding, maybe a deep or whatever, we gonna take you home or whatever. Your celebrity affords you certain things in this country that do not happen in other countries for one reason or another. Number two, we're missing the sports story here, Brian.
Okay.
Here's the sports story. The fact that one of the most notable stars in the WNBA has to go overseas to make a living, where she makes overseas more money than she will make in the WNBA. If she does not have to go overseas to make a honest living and take care of herself and her family, there is no story.
True.
It's that simple.
True.
If she's here playing in the United States, Canada, Mexico, where in the WNBA or equivalents in those countries, this never happens. So I ask you, and I ask everybody on the chat, when the last time have you ever been to a WNBA game? Number one, and then number two, when the last time you've been to a WNBA game?
Yeah, no and
that
never.
that is That is the reason why players like Brittney Griner and others have to go overseas to play ball. Now, I haven't been
And
to a
that's going to have.
WNBA game since COVID, but I was a frequent WNBA fan prior to COVID. I had the Atlanta Dream, or the closest team to me geographically, and I had plans to get to a Dream game or two this year, but when they had home games, I did not have the ability to go to the game, and vice versa. So the schedule did not work this year. So I'm on their email list, and I get all the ticket promotions and different things like that. But unfortunately, this year I did not get the opportunity to go. But I'm going to make it a point more now than ever to make sure I go and support not only my local team, but their advertisers, their sponsors, and things like that. If you can't go to a game, at least watch the game so your eyeballs get recorded, so that in the next TV contract, they can ask for more money so that they can pay the players more so that they don't have to go overseas. Same thing we ask for HBCU sports.
What's interesting, and I'll wrap up this segment and go to the break with this. What's interesting is what kind of shift in the international game will this have? Because she's not the only big name star that plays overseas in Russia. It's been well documented that,
and she's loved in Russia.
As
an athlete, as by the fans. Yes.
Yeah, I guess supposedly
not by the government, but by the fans.
Maybe right, maybe not by the government, but yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of women who go play over in Russia. Russia pays in Europe; they pay big money. So the question is, well, again, how will that affect? I know Russia's in the midst of this war, so maybe that in itself will cause people to say, yeah, maybe I don't want to go to Russia this season. But in the long run, how will that affect international basketball and relations? So a lot of things are happening there. We'll just continue to see how this unfolds, but that was the latest developments, and it makes for and one final thing, Drew. I wish, there's a great clip that's running on the Phoenix Mercury, who's that's her home team here in the WNBA. There's a great clip of Skylar Diggins about this, and it's almost she almost was making a plea to the media to stop asking the team about it, and she broke it up in the terms of saying, imagine having your sister or your friend in that situation. How do you think we feel? So it's almost like you can't ask us how we feel anymore, because we probably told you a dozen times, and it's not going to change. We're going to continue to feel horrible for her. And but anyway, I just thought that was if you can find it, I happened to bump across it when I was spending too much time on Instagram this morning. So let's get out of this segment, take a break, come back talking about some HBCU stuff. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. We'll be back in 2 minutes in just a moment.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cuville of Dr. Cuville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cuville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell them mama hungry.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
We are making the virtual HBCU experience available wherever you live through Stillman Online. We offer online degrees in business, criminal justice, psychology, and religion. Stillman also offers technology badges in cybersecurity and data analytics. You can participate in all student activities, fraternities and sororities, internships, graduation ceremonies, and much more. Apply for admission today at stillman.edu. Stillman College, where we prepare you for a different world.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan and AD here, and we promised to transition and get into talking about some HBCU related things. Obviously, longer first segment than we thought, but two big stories all the same. Encourage you guys to continue the discussion in the chat rooms on Facebook and on YouTube if that's where you're at. We encourage you to get there. All right, so Drew, one of the things that has been sort of a crawl in, my butt for just because I've been kind of paying attention to this thing is this whole. But you laugh, but I've never been more passionate to see Bethune-Cookman have success than I am.
You was talking about pulling my alumni card the last 2 weeks.
Well, look, I didn't vote for him. Now I see, unlike you out there voting for him and putting him out ahead of. Anyway, they are playing Jackson State on October 15th, right? And so obviously late in June, the story comes out that they're moving the game to Jacksonville, Florida. Now, at the time, from things that we've learned from, sources, people that we've talked to, Jackson State had really tried to get Bethune to agree to play that game in Jackson. And I think even to some degree, we're going to give them a large percentage of the profits. Now, of course, Jackson State wants as many home games as possible. I believe they only have 4 home games this year. They want 50,000 and as many games as possible. So obviously, it's a play to try to get another home game, And what many people maybe didn't realize when the story first broke is, why is this game moving to Jacksonville? Well, that particular weekend happens to be Biketoberfest in Daytona Beach. That's one of the two outside of that and the week 500. Of spring break. When is it when the bikes come in for the week? Is that like Bike Week? Bike Week. Thank you. Obviously, duh.
You got Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and the 500.
Right. Those are like 3 of the biggest economic weekends in the Daytona Beach area, right? So with hotel prices at huge huge cost, and just the fact that Bethune has to rent a stadium. Traffic is going to be crazy. You're going to have bikes running all up and down Daytona Beach for that potential game. It was an opportunity there, as we've noted in our show with other schools, Florida A&M, Valdosta State, Edward Waters, all being away from the Jacksonville area. So it really opened up an opportunity for Jacksonville and the city of Jacksonville to work with Bethune-Cookman, the city of Jacksonville, along with the Jacksonville Jaguars, to work with them to bring that game to TIAA Bank Field, right? Okay, so that's what happened first. And then, of course, at Media Day, Coach Prime eloquently drops the bomb on the game. What's funny is, Drew, he dropped his quote about why we playing this game, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think I got the quote right. Why we playing this game in Jacksonville? Who's going to be there? Something to that effect, right? Already basically besmirching Bethune-Cookman fans, Jacksonville fans, the whole area, just saying y'all not going to show up for this game, almost implying that, hell, Jackson State fans aren't going to this game, right? Okay, that's sort of implied. That's all what was implied. And, in talking with Jackson State folks that we know, hey, Jackson State has a lot of games that they're already traveling to in the early part of the season. So whether you want to call it a reason or an excuse, there's already sort of a understanding that, yeah, Jackson State might not want to travel. Fans might not want to travel to this game. The band, unless they're getting paid, probably is not traveling to that game. So all that stuff is happening. Excuse me for my froggy throat here. So all of that is floating around this game, and I, for one, Drew, was really adamant about trying to find out as much as I could about how this game came about, why is it being played that particular weekend, and also, the city of Jacksonville is also dealing with another big football game, which is I don't know, can we call it the Florida, what do we call it, the cocktail, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party?
It used to be called the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Now it's called the Florida-Georgia game.
The Florida-Georgia game, right. Okay, SEC Florida-Georgia game is played there, and there were already comments at the same time as Coach Prime's comments from Georgia's coach about why are we playing this game in Jacksonville? It'd be great if we played it
home and home.
Try to make it home at home. And see, he's pushing from the standpoint of, and I'm talking about Kirby Smart, he's wanting another game to impress recruits, as if you don't have enough opportunities to impress recruits, but it's also one more weekend to do that, I guess. So that's his angle. So the city of Jacksonville was already like, damn, y'all, come on now. We give enough money and we put enough behind this game, and here you are dumping on us. Well, here's some details as to why this is a good deal for Bethune-Cookman, and it could also lead to other opportunities for other schools in the area, namely Florida A&M, to want to partner with the city of Jacksonville to host games, because the Jaguars are also being a part of it and helping in this. So essentially, the city of Jacksonville is providing Bethune with a travel stipend of $30,000 for the band and the team. Now, again, they're only going an hour up the road, right? I believe that's the difference from Daytona to Jacksonville. So before you scoff at $30,000, it's only an hour up the road to bring the football and band, right? So it's not like they're having to go a long distance, okay?
Probably talking about 10 to 12 buses.
Exactly. So the city is providing all of the stadium staff and expenses, okay, including housekeeping, security, ticket takers, facility staff, ground staff, fire, medical, law enforcement, all of that's being provided by the city. Again, this is a home game for Bethune. Bethune, all they have to do is provide the game day operations. That's the officials, chain crew, clock operator, instant replay system, and staffing, which they would normally do where they play their games in Daytona Beach at Municipal Stadium. A stadium which, Drew, they rent. They do not own that stadium. Okay, so they're having to rent that stadium, which only seats about 10,000 people. Okay, you with me so far? Yeah? All right. So within that, the city is obviously giving the city will manage and control the tickets. They're providing Bethune-Cookman with 1,000 tickets to use however they want to use. Any tickets allotted to Jackson State will be provided from BCU's ticket allotment. So I would imagine, they'll maybe split because it's a SWAC thing. I don't
Probably
know what the SWAC rules are, but
probably
okay,
70-30.
70-30. Okay, 70-30. There'll be no fees or revenue provided to the city by Bethune for those tickets. So Bethune can sell those tickets if they choose to, right? Okay. The city gets a small complimentary set as well. And then here's the thing. The city and Bethune will split on a 60-40 basis the face value of all tickets sold on Ticketmaster. Again, city gets 60, Bethune gets 40. Remember, Bethune renting the old stadium, not paying any cost for this stadium. You're getting 40% of the ticket sales. You're already getting tickets that you could sell, and you're getting travel stipend, okay? The city gets control of all the parking, manages the revenue from the concessions, all of that. There's a few opportunity for Bethune to do some in-game sponsorship and advertisements, things of that nature. Marketing for the game. Marketing is being handled right now, or will be handled potentially by a company that also does some marketing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they are behind this thing. So in essence, Drew, as I was doing the math, Bethune could probably, let's just say if they sold 40,000 tickets, or just say if this game is attended by 40,000 people, Bethune could probably walk out of there with a profit of somewhere maybe 400,000, 500,000, if my math that I did earlier comes out right. Okay? That is a win that you won't get in your backyard in Municipal Stadium, because again, you don't own that stadium and you rent it, and you only seat 10,000. Yeah?
All right.
You with me so far?
Just to throw it out.
Thoughts thus far. Yeah, go ahead.
You know I'm the math man, right?
Go ahead, Matt. Make it make sense.
It's gonna make sense. Let's just say 10,000 tickets, 10,000 people in Municipal Stadium. $30 a ticket, which is about the average HBCU ticket. That's $300,000 in revenue.
Okay.
At TIAA Bank Field, they would have to sell 25,000 tickets to equal that same amount of revenue. Let's put that in perspective. So, 25,000 is your number in TIAA Bank. But at Municipal Stadium, you get no concessions, no parking if you're Bethune. That's all the money that you get is the ticket sales. And you have to pay all those things that you mentioned: security, fire, game day operations, concessions workers, etc., etc., etc. Now, in TIAA Bank, probably you're still not gonna get the parking.
No, you don't get the parking.
Still not gonna get the concessions.
Don't get the concessions.
So those are even. But here's the win. You say, I don't have to pay for police. fire, ticket takers, all those people. So that already cuts down. We said 25,000. I really don't have to sell that 25,000 now to get to that break even point, because that's one less expense, one less major expense that I don't have to do. Now, here's the other thing. You still have to transport those kids from campus to Municipal Stadium, because they don't go in their own cars. Van doesn't travel in vans. Those same buses, the same amount of buses that you're going to need to go from campus to Municipal Stadium, are going to be the same amount to go to Jacksonville, Florida. Now, I'm going to pay a little bit more per mile, because the hourly rate is the same. You're going to pay the same amount per hour for that bus driver. Now, the bus company's going to make a couple of more dollars because of the mileage. But you're giving me $30,000. So, in essence, I probably am not paying for the bus. If I am, it's going to be a minimal cost, versus if I'm in Daytona, I'm paying a couple of miles travel from campus to the stadium, plus the time that those bus drivers sit there on the clock. And yes, those bus drivers are sitting on the clock that whole entire time. That's probably about an 8-hour day for those bus drivers. They're on the clock. That's the same 8 to 10 hours that they're going to be up at Municipal Stadium. I don't know if Bethune puts their guys in a hotel the night before, like most teams do, but if so,
probably
that you're not going to put your players in a hotel in Daytona that weekend because of how much those hotels are going to play. And if you so, you're probably paying $349 a night. Where I could go to Jacksonville and probably pay $149 a night. And with the number of hotels that Bethune is going to need, you're probably going to be down to about $99 a night. And that's not even counting the visiting team, Jackson State, because obviously they'll be in a hotel Friday night also. So I see the win thus far.
Yeah, so I mean, you set the line at 25. Again, I've been saying that this is the minimum 40,000.
No, I say that's what you just need to break even with the same amount of money that you would have made in Municipal Stadium. The max you're gonna make in Municipal Stadium is 300.
Right, exactly, max. So what I'm saying is you're going to probably do more than that if you get the 40,000. And again, if you get the sponsorship and the advertising and the marketing, remember, Jacksonville, one of the largest counties, one of the largest areas in Florida. You got South Georgia. And again, look who's coming. You have the draw of Jackson State. Now, their band probably may not come. But still, there's plenty of reasons to celebrate and talk about how good this Jackson State team is coming. There's plenty of guys to want to see that'll be coming. Now, here's what makes it even juicier now. Okay, the idea that quickly, go ahead, because we got to get out of here and go to a break. So go ahead, get your point.
EA says BCU does not have 25K fans to the Florida Classic, the biggest game of the year for them. JSU game will draw less than 15K. It's a EA, you are wrong.
I take a bet. I take that bet. I take that bet.
Is someone who has been to the Florida Classic pre-COVID, the Florida Classic drew well over 50. No, it did not. It did not top the Bayou. It did not top Magic City. It did not top the Southern Heritage. But if you go top 5 attendance pre-COVID, Florida Classic was top 5 attendance.
Hey, look, you're saying that Bethune doesn't have 25,000.
And that's not all FAMU down in Orlando. Trust me.
Thank you. They have 25,000 fans that will, again, I put the asterisk on there about this game being promoted and discussed the right way. Obviously, Bethune needs to get back to their winning ways, but We've seen that game draw 70,000 people. That wasn't all FAMU. That wasn't all Bethune. That was a combination of, look, if FAMU brought 30, Bethune may have bought 20. And then the rest was local.
Locals.
Who knows,
Yeah.
But Bethune's got at least 20. And again, we're just talking college football fans in the area. In Jacksonville, you got a big name HBCU brand that's coming to play in Jacksonville. That'll be big, huge. Now, here's the one other thing. Let me get to it real quick, Drew. So go ahead. Hurry up. Get your point in.
That's the closest Prime is going to get to Tallahassee, where he played ball and starred for the Florida State Seminoles for at least another year.
Large alumni base of Florida State fans are in Jacksonville. Need I remind you? Okay, so there's another reason why that game draws interest. Okay, so again, let's make sure EA, you call it. What are we betting on this? A plate of wings and some ginger ale? You call it. 15,000. If that's the line you're setting, I'm taking the over, and I will bet you a plate of wings and whatever, some Diet Coke. You call it, man. I will take that bet. The last thing is this announcement that came out on Friday from Jackson State. Drew, this is why this game will happen, and it'll be big. Jackson State partnered with American Airlines. That announcement came out on Friday, right? This announcement puts Jackson State University and American Airlines in sync with one another. I'm reading from HBCUSports.com, as the official airline and airline rewards program sponsor, American Airlines is excited to provide Jackson State University fans with VIP rewards and benefits, which can be accessed by using their American Airlines A Advantage number. So you can get flights from Jackson, Mississippi to Jacksonville. If you were to just buy a ticket today, you probably pay less than $125. I looked it up myself. Okay, so you can get from Jackson to Jacksonville. It'd be more expensive if you flew to Daytona Beach. Probably be more expensive if you flew to Orlando. But guess where you can fly? Jacksonville. So maybe, just maybe, as the team will potentially, it says the Jackson State football team has an opportunity to get chartered flights. There's no reason for Jackson State fans to not want to get on a plane and go support your team. So, Jackson State fans, 10,000 of you, 5,000 of you, go support your team. Go put it on your A Advantage reward number, because you all need to go sign up for that anyway. And, travel and go support your team. But then expect the rest of that stadium, that TIAA Bank Field Stadium, to be packed with Wildcat fans. And I'm telling you, 40,000 plus will be in attendance for that game. So, again,
Tamara T sums it up all for us, Brian. Who the heck wants to be in Daytona during Bike Fest? Heck no. That sums it all up.
There you go. Coming back after this break, we got Jamie Walker joining us. We're going to get into talking about some of the top games of the non-conference schedule, as well as some of the toughest schedules in FCS, including his beloved North Carolina A&T Aggies, rather. We'll talk about that and more with him on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
One bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Oh, that spin class was brutal. Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat. Ooh, yeah, that's nice.
Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on?
Sure, it's wireless.
Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot. Don't worry, I used to hate parallel.
Well, let's do that after.
Me too. Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan and AD here, joined by our good friend Jamie Walker. Jamie, how you doing, my man?
I am well. How are you all doing this evening?
Jamie get the big box this week. You see, he was in the small box when he was on for the whole show, and then last week he was in the regular size box when it was just me and him. So now, since he's a guest, he get the big box.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You know, hey, I'm looking to move up in this world. I like it.
Working for more FaceTime. I see you, Jamie. That's smart. So, Jamie, you had a chance to hear, before we get into talking about what we wanted to talk with you about, you had a chance to hear our discussion maybe at the end of the last segment regarding Bethune, Jackson State, 40,000. Now, I'm seeing our good friend EA posting that this game is right now scheduled for a 1 p.m. kickoff, which I was not aware it's a 1 p.m. kickoff. I will honestly admit that. I didn't know it was a 1 p.m. kickoff. I don't know if that's official or not, but just in general, what are your thoughts on the success or potential success of this game, Jamie, especially given that it is being backed practically, I won't say 100%, but doggone 80% of it's being backed by the city of Jacksonville and the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Well, I love it. I mean, I think everyone is riding the success of what's going on, especially with Jackson State right now. So my thing is, why not? I understood initially what Coach Prime was trying to say in relation to the attendance, but I think after listening to you, especially, I mean, because y'all are more, Florida Classic experts, that the Bethune base is, centered in Jacksonville. And so I think this will be a great turnout for the game. So I don't see what will be wrong at all. I like it. I mean, I like the fact that it's up there. I like the fact that it's being supported by both the NFL team in that town and by the city. So, hey, why not? Let's see what happens.
Jacksonville is starving for some HBCU football. No offense to Evan Waters, but it's been a while since FAMU or Bethune have played a game in Jacksonville. And honestly, the city of Jacksonville is supporting that HBCU game more than the city of Orlando, in my opinion, supports the Florida Classic. Now you live in Orlando, Brian. You can you can confirm or deny what I'm speaking of, but just on the surface, it seems like the city of Jacksonville is putting more into that game than Orlando puts into the Florida Classic.
Well, there are a lot of people that are talking about the fact that, given the amount of money that has been on record by folks here within the Orlando area that the Florida Classic brings, that the monies that FAMU and Bethune receive should be more. See, again, I guess this brings that overall question, and Jamie, this is a question that Aggies and Eagles should be asking with that game being played in Charlotte. When you hear city leaders talk about the financial impact that a game like that brings, and in Orlando at the Florida Classic, it's been on record, 30 million was the number thrown around, right? How much of that, given that large economic impact, what are the schools being paid? And it's less than $1 million for each in Orlando, less than $1 million. And to many folks, that doesn't sit, that it just doesn't comprehend. It's like, how are we making so much of an impact, but only receiving such a small amount in comparison? And I know a lot of stuff goes into it, such as your hiring of staffing, marketing, promotions, cost on hotels, and I mean, there's an expense sheet which you have to go digging. I mean, it's available, especially on the FAMU side, because FAMU is a public institution. You can go find it; it's there. But that's why a lot of people, we have friends who will say this game should be put out on bid. I mean, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, other cities in the Florida area should have an opportunity to bid on that game. What are you hearing about the North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T game and the financial impact that game will have for those schools?
Well, we haven't heard much as far as the financial impact of what Charlotte is going to bring, but I'll tell you what, they're rolling out the red carpet as far as promoting the game, even bringing in black companies to actually to do the merch, concert. Like, they're making a full-fledged event. I actually reached out to the folks actually putting on the game, and they couldn't give me final numbers as of yet, because they said the final numbers would not be disclosed until after the game. So I'm already on that, because I'm curious to see what goes on, and with all the discussion on what these classics actually get, I was curious myself. So it's just a matter of getting those final tallies, and I have those. So I would assume, just based on, because A&T's already sold their ticket allotment. They're good to go. I think Central. I'm not sure what the final numbers were as far as that, but they did that pretty quickly. So as far as what they're obliged to do, I think that's already done. But I know the heads over there in dealing with the past. I think North Carolina and South Carolina played the game, I think either last year or the year before. Their payout was somewhere around $2 million. So we will see what happens. If it's as far as promotion, I'm loving what I'm seeing, but that's wonderful. But I want to see those final tallies to see if it was worth it, or should they have kept it a home and home. They're also playing in this game again in 2027, so we'll see what happens. But in relation to what you said, even about the Florida Classic, I remember I put my ear on to the O&G Strike Zone when y'all had a couple people on talking about the game. And so the fact that, promoters say maybe that game should be bidded out, and that Jacksonville will be a good suitor, and the fact that the town of Orlando is bragging about a $30 million windfall based on you all playing that game there, and you're getting less than $1 million. Yeah, I absolutely think it should be bidded out. So, I know, on these Twitter streets and things of that nature that, certain people from other schools shouldn't speak on other schools, of course, but, but just hearing that and just hearing that information, hey, I would say the same thing if the roles were reversed and A&T was involved in that as well. So, hey, go for it, bid it out.
What's
Now,
your
let me ask a
attendance
follow-up to that.
estimation?
Oh, go ahead.
My
Oh, I'm
attendance
sorry. Yeah,
estimation,
yeah.
I would say between 40 and 50. I mean, somewhere in there. I would say, yeah, I'm gonna
Plus
be ambitious.
35,000. Plus 35,000. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Let's
Go
let's
ahead,
let's
Drew. What was your
let's go there.
question? I'm
We'll
sorry.
see.
Well, the Aggie Eagle Classic, since we done brought it up, has an interesting format because I think it's a 10-year deal, but I think only, if I remember right, only 4 of those are in Charlotte, if I've got the number right, and the other 6 are home and homes. So, what about that format? I hate to say it like this: is it confusing for fans, or the fans liking that we're still going to get a home and home, and then every third year or whatever that equates out to be, we'll be going to Charlotte. So okay, I'm staying at home this year. I travel to the other place next year, and then we got the neutral site in that other year. So just kind of talk about that.
Well, I think it'll be fine because for several years it was at Carter Finley Stadium, NC State's stadium, for a lot of years. That's where the classic was actually made, gone. And I think they went back to a home and home over the last few years before we left the conference. So I think it'll be fine regardless to where it is. But you're talking about Charlotte being an area where the basis for both schools are in. So I don't think it'll be any trouble at all. People traveling to those sites. So I think it'll be just fine. But A&T, even leaving the conference, still wanted to continue playing other HBCUs because quite frankly, it's your most attended games. It was one of those things where North Carolina Central, South Carolina State, of course, and a couple others, even within that MEAC format, those are the most attended games. So they still wanted to continue, even with Norfolk State, wanted to continue playing those games. So I don't think it's a problem at all. I think it'll be attended well.
Hey, I see via the chat room, A&T Roy said that only 2 of the games in that 10-year deal are set to be played in that Charlotte stadium, and that's the 2 you mentioned, this year and
Yeah.
2017. So
Okay, I had
I
my
guess
number incorrect. I appreciate that.
right. So this is a big opportunity for both schools to draw more fans than what has ever been at an Aggie Eagle Classic. So I mean, I love the thought of 40-50. Maybe that's that. Let's be ambitious while we're out there talking about these games. Sure, let's go ahead and put it on the wild side, and let's come up with a number, and then let's encourage people to go, because it only benefits. Look, people who wanted to go, you can go. There's no reason, if you ever wanted to go to the Aggie Eagle Classic, if you were at North Carolina Central, if you were at A&T Aggie, and you feel like this is the year that the Eagles will finally overcome after 4 years of beatdowns by your brethren in the state, then this is a chance. This is your chance to go, show out, show up, and let's just hope it draws a good crowd. That's what we need for that event. Let's pivot over to some BCSN preseason power rankings and strength of schedule rankings. Now, our professor of computer projection
of all things numbers.
Y'all better leave me alone.
has put together a great formula here to tell us, as we look at this potential season. Now, again, the strength of schedule always changes, right, Drew? As games
As
are
the season
played,
progresses.
season progresses, these numbers. But if today, going pre week 0, if
based
the
on
season
last
plays
year's
out
record,
based on last year's records, and really, isn't it a little bit based on predictive results for this year, Drew, or is it not based on predictive?
yeah, it's a little bit, but a lot of the predictive results for this year are based on last year's results.
Okay, all right. So that's how it works in the computer game. For those of you who don't know how strength of schedule is determined, so here's the top 5 FCS. Now, these are FCS, so the 21 HBCUs in the FCS. These are the top 5 projected rankings. I'm going to start from 5 to 1. Number 5 starts with Jamie's North Carolina A&T Aggies, 5th toughest schedule, and it includes such. Now, this is, of course, the Aggies are still in the Big South, preseason favorite to win the conference, but this is a heck of a first 4 weeks, Jamie, and I'd love for you to comment about this. Of course, the North Carolina Central neutral site game. Then the game that I'm anticipating, I'm really looking forward to this game for y'all, is the game at North Dakota State, the number 1 or number 2 ranked team. I mean, multi-year national champion, North Dakota State. Then they travel to Duke, to play ACC opponent. And then they host South Carolina. Yep. And then they host South Carolina State, which, I mean, of course, the defending Celebration Bowl and MEAC champs. So if I'm not mistaken, Jamie, that is week 1, 2, 3, 4. No breaks, no days off. What's your thoughts on that first 4 weeks? And does it feel like 5 is too low for North Carolina A&T in terms of strength of schedule?
It may be slightly low, but that is a tough schedule considering you got 2 rivals in the mix. You got the North Dakota State game that was scheduled a few years ago before COVID. They're making up that game, and as head coach Sam Washington said, hey, it's a test for all things, A&T. A few years ago when that squad was intact and you had everyone in place, that you wanted, it probably would have been and still could be a good game. We'll see what happens because when you're looking at this squad, there are a lot of unknowns to other people, but I think this team has tightened up where it was deficient. So I think, the schedule, South Carolina State being the defending MEAC champions is always going to bring their A game. That game was incredibly close. In fact, South Carolina State was winning until Corey Fields got hit and out the game. So, A&T does what A&T does and was able to kind of seize the moment and capture that win. But they're going to be tough coming into Greensboro, and we'll see what happens there. Of course, North Carolina Central, even before that, is they're not going to get beat like they've been getting beat the last few years. They're a really good offensive team. They got the receiving core coming back, Davis Richard, that signal caller. They'll be able to run the football. They're experienced. And, with them having, A&T's old defensive coordinator, they're going to be ready to try to get some get back. So that's also going to be a tough game. And you kind of already talked about the North Dakota State game. The Duke game, in years past, it's been a little closer than people thought, close for 3 quarters. And then, of course, Duke, pulling away at the end. But, it'll be a good check. It'll be a nice check that we collect. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
so at the end of the –
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Finish your point. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I mean, so we'll see what happens there, but I think it is absolutely a tough schedule. Tougher, just looking at the other opponents than 5. Now I understand, South Carolina State, for example, of course, always plays, an SEC or ACC opponent that's tough. They always, they'll go get that money game, and also, it puts their players on display. Crazy enough, I think that's the other side of what people talk about in relation to schedule. I know some people don't like those money games, but when I talk to, hear those NFL coaches, the first set of tape they're talking about putting on was, for example, the Kobe Durant was the Clemson tape for James Houston when he was at Florida playing opponents. So regardless of whether we like it or not, there are some uses to playing those games, but that is also a tough schedule. So, Hampton going into the CAA, I think that schedule could probably be down some as far as toughness, but I think, from week 1 to week, 11, it's tough. They got, some other games that, they are winnable, such as the Howard game, such as the Tuskegee game. No offense, AD,
Watch your mouth. Watch your
but
mouth. Watch your mouth.
so we'll see what happens there. Although, man, I love what Tuskegee's doing, social media wise, man. They look the part. They look the part, man. I love what I'm seeing. But yeah, so I absolutely think A&T schedule should move up as far as toughness.
Before you ask your question, Drew, that I know we talked about offline asking Jamie, that North Dakota State game might be the biggest non-conference HBCU versus PWI matchup of September. Just from the standpoint of all of this talk about what we are and how we measure ourselves is now on the shoulders of the Aggies. Because if the Aggies, I don't think North Dakota State has played an HBCU. And we talk about the fact that how we compare against other FCS programs. Well, Sam Washington via Rod Broadway before him, y'all built a good program. Now let's put your program up against that program and let's see where we at. And honestly, I can't think of a bigger game that has more meaning to it, because if you cover what will probably be a 14 to 20 point spread, I'm going to say at least 14. I'm going to say at least 2 touchdowns. If you cover 14, I think it's a good showing in a lot of people's eyes, for various reasons. So that's just my take on how important that particular game is. Drew, go ahead. What's your question? What's the question that you want to get into with Jamie here before we go to number 4?
All right, I'll just toss you the softball, Jamie. We in the 6-12 league. North Carolina A&T. They have North Dakota State, as Brian has said. You also have MEAC champion South Carolina State on your schedule. So A&T is projected to win the Big South Conference. Let's say, here's a softball, here's a toss, see if you can hit it over the fence. A&T wins the Big South, defeats South Carolina State, has a good showing, and even possibly defeats North Dakota State.
Whoa.
Now, we've traditionally crowned the Celebration Bowl winner as HBCU national champion. A&T does those, gets into the playoffs, and makes a deep run. Wins 2, possibly 3 games in the playoffs. Give me your argument, because I know you're going to make the argument because you're A&T alone. Give me your argument why we should crown A&T the champion at that point.
I'm not going to give you that argument. I am going to say the Celebration Bowl is the Black College national champion. I've always been consistent in that point, and I'll continue being consistent in that.
Despite the fact that A&T plays 4
Are you that guy, Jamie? I didn't know you were that guy.
I'm that guy. I am that guy. I am that guy.
Of the three independents, A&T plays more HBCUs on their schedule than the other 3.
Listen here. Hey, the truth shall set you free. But like I said, let others tell it. It is what it is. We don't like the HBCU space. You know what I'm saying? Let them, hey. Cool, great, no problem. But I'll keep it consistent, like I always do, because South Carolina State was the HBCU national champion last year due to their win against Jackson State. That is the dynamic in which all winners, if you win out, that is the mechanism in which all folks get there. All folks get to that championship game. If you lose, you can't get in it. If you win, you're in it. Therefore, the winner of that game is crowned the Black College national champion. Now, as an Aggie alum, what my mindset is, oh man, y'all can't touch us. The Aggie arrogance kicks in at that point. Oh man, come on, man. Yeah, we arguing all kinds of talking big
Aggie
trash
pride.
on the board. Absolutely, we talking big trash on the boards. But yeah, crown, HBCU national champs, absolutely. The winner of the Celebration Bowl, absolutely be crowned that person. I am that guy.
Maurice
Jamie,
Leary agreed with you and says the Celebration Bowl is the Black College champ. Your A&T brother.
Jamie, you ever tell your kids, I love you, but I don't like what you're doing? You just fell in that category for me right now. I love you, Jamie, but I don't like what you just said, but I still love you though. I still love you.
I love you too, but I love you, brothers.
Oh man! Oh boy. Okay, so you know how I did that. I was like, "Oh, you're that guy." I didn't know that was you.
Yep.
I really thought you were more nuanced than that, Jamie. That's all right though. That's all right. No judgment. No judgment.
Look,
no judgment.
Brian, I threw the softball up there to him, and he popped out to the first baseman.
He lined it right back to the pitcher. Lined it right back to the pitcher, and it was like, boom. You're like, wait a minute. I thought you were going to hit this out the ballpark. That's all right.
I'm going to keep it consistent.
Hey, Brian, let's take a break before we get to those other four.
Yes, because we got to move through those other four. So let's take a break, and we'll come back from our disappointment at Jamie, and we'll finish up with the rest of the toughest schedules in the FCS HBCU landscape in a moment. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry. Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more. But it's so absorbent, you can use less. So it's always worth it. Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
The Cuvee Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvee.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan, AD, Jamie Walker, dealing with more disappointment in the break. So that's just the life. I forgot it's football season, so you just gotta you forget about people, and then football season comes around, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. Yep, you're that guy. So no judgment.
We need to have a town. We need to have a town hall meeting on that subject. Yeah, on that very subject, because you would be surprised how often that comes up. You know, people's opinion is,
I've always
they're
maintained that
entitled.
everybody does it. Look, the fact that now we're now dealing with 23 of the 21 don't have the opportunity to play in the Celebration Bowl is always
It was
why
easy
I've
when it was just Tennessee State.
Yeah, it was because you can say, well, they're out of it. The odds of them doing anything are slim. But now you've got 3 schools, and again, it's an endless debate. We'll talk about all days, and then So anyway, let's move to number 4. So based on projections, strength of schedule, the number 4 team is South Carolina State. The Bulldogs, who start their season against UCF down here in Orlando. They travel to play Bethune. Obviously, we mentioned that. Well, no, we didn't mention that, but South Carolina State plays Bethune. In terms of play Bethune, they've got the Aggies. They also play South Carolina. So they've got 2 FBS matchups. I mean, they don't even play a home game until October 8th when they host FAMU. So the whole month of September, the first 4 of the 5 weeks for South Carolina State are on the road. That's a very tough schedule. I mean, their first 5 weeks, again, UCF, Bethune, A&T, South Carolina, and FAMU before they catch a break by playing Virginia Lynchburg. So, that's how that first 5 pans out. Anybody got any comments about South Carolina before we move to number 3?
They also have a bye week, week 3 between the BCU and A&T games. So I'm really with that bye week going into A&T, I'm expecting a war, and honestly, with the bye, even though it's on the road, you would have to consider South Carolina State the possible favorite, considering that A&T will be coming off of Duke the week before they play South Carolina State.
What's also interesting about the schedule shapes up. Look, remember what A&T's or South Carolina State's first half of their season looked like last year. It wasn't that impressive. Then they got hot in the second half of the season thanks to the conference, right? Almost a similar situation where in the last 7 weeks of the season, starting with the FAMU game on October 8th, 5 of those 7 games were at home. They host North Carolina Central. They host North Carolina's Norfolk State, who are number 2 and 3 predicted finish in the. So they've got the favorable MEAC schedule, and just the second half. So if they catch a couple of wins against Bethune and your Aggies, Jamie, I hate to say it, but if they catch a couple of wins there, they're going into that FAMU game 2-2, feeling pretty good about themselves in the second half of the season.
Well, even last year when they, coming off the Clemson game, I think they played New Mexico State, and their schedule didn't do them any favors. But what, Coach Buddy Pugh said was that it toughened them up. It actually, made them come together with a very young team. So, if they can go into that, the A&T game, which I hate the fact that they have a bye before that game, because I think, if they didn't, they would be, good and beat up in those first 3 weeks. So them having a bye, or first 2 weeks, so them having a bye actually does help them a lot, even though they're going to Greensboro. But the thing about the Bulldogs is this: they have a lot of experience, but they are also still very young. Considering that their 2 top players, I would say, Corey, at least the ones that showed up at Media Day, Corey Fields and Jablonski Green, some of their redshirt sophomores. So when you're looking at just the team overall, I think their entire offensive line were either freshmen or sophomores. So they are still a very young team. So they could either come together, in that game. And I'll go on record in saying this. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a split with Central and South Carolina State with A&T. Because both of those teams are not what they have been the last 3 to 4 years. They're not. Those are two very tough opponents. That's why I said the schedule is tough for A&T, but South Carolina State plays a perennially tough schedule, so they're accustomed to doing this. I don't think it will affect them in MEAC play. In fact, I think it helps them. I'm curious to see because I think that FAMU is in Orangeburg, right?
Correct.
That's going to be interesting to me. That is interesting, especially depending on who's the quarterback for FAMU.
Oh, well, come on now.
Okay, anyway. My comment on South Carolina State, and I'll make this quick. That first conference game may be their most important game because they opened up conference play against Central at home in Orangeburg. But a loss to Central, any loss in the BIAC, but especially a loss to Central, could really put South Carolina State behind the 8 ball this year and set it up for Central to win South Carolina State because Central will already have a game in the conference, having played Morgan State the previous week.
Yeah, I think considering that Central, is going into this year with high hopes, I think they're looking to improve. You could absolutely see head coach Trey Oliver wanting this team to just finish and come together because they have everything in place to win. It's just a matter of, between them and Norfolk State really tailing off at the end of last year, they understand that neither one of those teams finished. So they're looking to get some get back against South Carolina State. And I think they have the tools to get it. If South Carolina State is feeling themselves a little too much, Central does have the capabilities of getting them, but that game is in Orangeburg and it will be, one of the few games that'll be there. So, hey, we'll see what happens.
All right. The number three toughest schedule in HBCU FCS is Mississippi Valley State, who for Valley, what's interesting is they already play in the SWAC East, which if any of you folks who pay attention to ratings, you essentially have the SWAC East and SWAC West. You can almost look at two separate conferences. Because the MEAC is a 16 conference in itself. So if you look at the SWAC East, the MEAC, and the SWAC West, you got 3 conferences there. So they already play in the SWAC East, which is actually by Massey ratings is rated higher than some other full leagues. The SWAC East is, and then they play the top 3 teams in terms of predicted order of finish from the SWAC West. They host Alcorn, they travel to Southern, and then they host Prairie View A&M. So those are, of course, Southern, Alcorn, and Prairie View were all preseason 1, 2, 3, right? Non-conference, Valley, they play Tarleton, who is an FCS program, and they play Austin Peay. So those 2 are on the road, and then they host Delta State, which Delta State gave Jackson State a very good game. That is a very good.
They are a D2 powerhouse. Traditionally,
yeah. So it is, that's Valley's. No breaks for Valley. I know a lot of people like what Vincent Dancy's doing, but man, no breaks for Valley.
Absolutely no breaks, man. Like that is you already getting hell in that East gauntlet, but your crossover games are against perennial winners. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you're getting no breaks at all, and then you're talking about a couple of games against FCS opponents who absolutely do. Are at the forefront of each of their conferences. So, they don't get any breaks at all. I wouldn't move them down at all. I think they're right up there and deservedly so.
And Valley was the toughest schedule among all 12 SWAC schools. It was Valley. So can let you
Yeah.
know, obviously number 2 and number 1 are not SWAC schools. All right, so number 2 happens to be second toughest schedule in FCS, Tennessee State. Tennessee State and the OVC. The OVC, by the way.
Brian, before
Yeah.
you get too far for Valley, you talk about their SWAC East. They've got Jackson State and FAMU on the road, the top 2 teams in the SWAC East. You failed to mention that part of it too when you're talking about those road games.
I just
I'm sorry.
look in general, it's a tough road for Valley. I don't care if you're home or away. But I get your point though. Good point. Okay, so Tennessee State and the OVC. A lot of people are. This might be the final, the final call for the Ohio. What is it? OVC, Ohio Valley Conference. It's now a
Last call
16.
for alcohol.
It's a 17 league, but you're only playing 5 conference games because there is a new member that's coming in. So they're provisional. Tennessee State doesn't even play them. So they only really have 5 conference games that they're playing. But the OVC, surprisingly, is ranked 10th in the FCS. Of how many conferences are there? There are like 20-something conferences.
No, I think there are the 16 conferences in FCS because 13 get automatic bids because the BAC, the SWAC, and the
Ivy League, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so they open the season at the number 6 ranked team in FCS. That's Eastern Washington. So they have to travel all the way out to Eastern Washington. Then they play the neutral game against Jackson State. Then they go on the road and take on Middle Tennessee State of Conference USA. So that's your 1, 2, and 3 game, right off the bat. So nothing easy. Then what I find interesting is they play Lane. They host Lane College, who, look, we were there. Lane is a respectable team. A lot of people have high hopes for Tennessee State, but if Tennessee State is not sharp, Lane could possibly knock them off in that contest. And then they host Bethune-Cookman the following week before they get into that conference play. And then they end the season with Texas A&M Commerce, which is a team that they should beat. But that Tennessee, it doesn't. When you hear that Tennessee State, it doesn't sound like it's a tougher schedule. But I think because of the conference rating, I think that's how it comes out as a tougher schedule.
Yeah, that's exactly why. It always makes me wonder who's actually doing the rankings when it comes to the conference.
Right. All right. So in the number 1 toughest schedule in HBCU FCS belongs to Hampton. The Hampton Pirates, new members of the Colonial. Hampton plays, first off, according to Massey ratings, power rankings for conferences, the Colonial is rated 6th among all FCS conferences, right? 6th. Hampton plays 6 teams that are rated in the top 50 in FCS football. 6 of them. And if you wanted to extend that out to say the top 55, it would be 8 games among top 55 opponents in the FCS. So, and just by comparison, right? Whoever you think, I'm just going to use FAMU as an example. FAMU, there is no team in the SWAC or MEAC that has a rating higher than 80. And I think 80 is right about where FAMU's rating is. A&T actually comes in at 75. So just to let you know, that's the perception of again, looking at a picture of 130 schools in FCS football, and you're Hampton, you got to play 8 games against the top half. I mean, that's hey, welcome to the Colonial. Hope that works out for you.
So Brian, you said 8 games against top 60 opponents, correct?
Top 55, yeah.
Okay. That means the only games that they will play that's not against the top 55 opponents or the three HBCU opponents, being Howard in the
Ding,
Battle of
ding,
the Real
ding.
HU,
Yep.
Tuskegee in what should be called the Booker T Classic, and Norfolk in the Battle of the Bay.
Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. That's those first three games right off the bat. So, I mean, look, if Hampton, hey, it's conceivable that Hampton could go 3-0, and all of a sudden people are kind of looking at Hampton a
And
little
be
bit
3 and
different.
8.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how the rest of the season can go. It could go that way. But unfortunately you don't know how they're going to match up until those games happen. So that's how important the non-conference is for Hampton to sort of get some good feels about themselves. Let me shift over to under D1. Now, these are NAIA Division II. When we talk about the top 5 toughest schedules, I'll just run them 5-1 for you guys. Number 5 is Morehouse of the SIAC. Number 4, Drew's favorite school, Virginia Lynchburg. Number 3, Florida Memorial of the Sun Conference. Number 2 is Texas College, I believe, of the Sooner Athletic Conference. Yeah. And number 1 is Lincoln, Missouri of the, what is that conference? The MIAA, Midwest
MIAA.
Intercollegiate. Yeah, Midwest Intercollegiate Athletic Association, which, Drew, that they have a gauntlet because I think in Division II, aren't there like 6 schools that are ranked in the top 20 out of that conference or some ridiculous
Something
number?
like top 25, I think. Something
Yes,
ridiculous.
exactly. You imagine that's like, and so yeah, Lincoln, Missouri. I tell you, man, if they get it right, that they're gonna be off the chain over there.
I don't know,
Any
man.
other?
I don't know. I think the toughest schedule got to be Virginia Lynchburg.
Yeah.
Look,
The toughest
Virginia Lynchburg, in theory, could win the MEAC championship because they played 4 games against MEAC opponents.
For real.
I'm still trying to figure out what their classification is. Yes, and they also look.
Oh yes,
they might be right.
They played 11 road
all
games.
On the road.
Yes.
So here's their schedule. Virginia Lynchburg. They play Virginia Union, then Presbyterian, then they play Delaware State, North Carolina Central, Morgan State. There's that MEAC schedule. Then they jump back and play Savannah State, another MEAC opponent in South Carolina State. Southern and the SWAC said they want a piece. Then you have Weber International, who is an NAIA, and then the Citadel, which I think is FCS. But I mean, hey, credit to them for getting, how many games is that? 1, 2, 3.
That's 10, I think.
That's
10.
9
Yeah,
or
I
10.
mean, look, that's how you build a program. You build a program by
that's 10.
Going out and playing people, and then you get beat by most of those teams, and man, pretty soon when Virginia Lynchburg joins a conference and moves up to Division II or NAIA, we're gonna have to apologize for snickering at them as much as we have.
I'm not snickering, but they should be crowned MEAC champs if they pull that off, man.
Man, look,
they should be crowned MEAC champs.
Wait,
yes,
wait, man. Here's the kicker out of all this. I believe, and I'm looking at it, I believe they are, at least for the HBCUs, 3 consecutive homecoming opponents.
Oh,
now
yeah.
I don't know if the non-HBCUs have them as a homecoming opponents, but the whole month of October, they would be homecoming opponents for HBCUs. The last 3 weeks in October.
Wow. Okay. Let's move off of those schedules again, and obviously, I don't know if anybody cares about who has the easiest schedule. I don't know. Jamie, do you care about the easiest schedule? Do you want to know who has the easiest schedule according to our numbers?
Go ahead. I love to know.
It's actually Norfolk State, easiest schedule. Followed by Grambling. So yeah, just something to pay attention to. And
And on
the
the
under
D2,
D1.
yes.
Go. I got it. You want to do it, or you got it?
No, go ahead. No, I was going to ask you. You going to mention the other ones?
Sure, might as well. On the D2, or I guess we should say the under D1 level, Arkansas Baptist, which is good for them being a new team to the level that they're playing at. It's good that they have the easiest schedule, followed by Johnson C. Smith with the second easiest schedule. I'm looking at, what is that, a CIAA, couple of SIAC schools filtered into that. Yeah, so that's how the easiest schedules look. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes as the year progresses. All-Americans came out, guys. If you obviously, when you talk about All-American lists, you've got Box to Row, which does theirs. He just released the Box to Row. Stats Perform FCS drops theirs. Hero Sports, Phil Steele. Those are some of the sites that drop All-American lists. Some guys, Phil Steele does an FCS where he drops 4 teams. He covers the entire FCS gambit. What I find interesting, guys, if you look at the disparity or the differences in the polls, or I guess these rankings, right? When you talk about All-Americans, for example, I'll use somebody like a Jamari A. Sharif, who received no credit from the SWAC all-conference, right? No mention at all of the leading punt returner in the nation from last year, except then he becomes an All-American on Phil Steele's first team as a punt returner. I believe he became a All-American. Let's see. For some reason, he didn't make Box to Row, but hey, that happens. But he becomes an All-American with Stats Perform FCS. So that's the one name that I kind of look at amongst all of it that really shocked me. As I say, when you look at these different All-American teams, that's what caught me. Anything when you look at these various All-American teams that you see that shocked you, Drew or Jamie?
Well, we kind of mentioned this on, what was that, Thursday? We were on a Cuvee show together, Jamie.
Yeah.
Where we were talking about the All-American list. And let's look at the wide receiver position from Stats FCS. 3 of the top 3 wide receivers in the SWAC East were FCS All-American. But 2 of those 3 receivers, the question is, who gonna get them the ball this year? We know what they can do once they get the ball, but who's gonna get the ball? Get them the ball.
You're referring to obviously Abdul Fattah Ibrahim of Alabama A&M, Xavier Smith at FAMU, and who's your third? Are you talking Everett from Bethune?
Jackson State, Bolden, Jackson State.
Well, but he's listed more as a kick returner. Bolden is sort of making these lists as a kick returner, right?
Yeah, so I think a lot of them is that he's. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But it does bring
like
an interesting
Swiss Army
Oh.
point. Knife type of guy for Jackson State right now. But we know who's going to get him the ball. We don't know who's going to get the ball to Xavier Smith. We don't know who's going to get the ball
we do know who's going to get the ball to Xavier. Come on, you guys stop with this. I keep trying to tell you, look, Rashawn McKay is going to be the quarterback week 0 for Florida A&M University.
And Maritovich will probably be the quarterback week 1.
No, it's not even. He's not the guy in waiting. It's Junior Musa who's the guy in waiting. I saw it in the spring. Musa, the ball he just is different, man. That kid can play And so here's what I will say. Unlike last year where Coach Simmons might have thought twice or might have paused in wanting to bring Muratovic in because obviously he was a true freshman. He won't have that same pause because of the experience of Musa. Musa has shown it in the spring game, and I've heard some reports that people who went to or viewed the scrimmage from Saturday that Musa looked good. So I don't think they're going to go away from McKay to start the season, but it's funny. You guys talk about what kind of work people put on film against these FBS programs. I think don't be surprised if you see a rotation in terms of possessions. Maybe one quarter starts with McKay, second quarter goes to Musa, and it just may look different. I'm not making any predictions outside of week 0, but I'm telling you, first game, week 0, first snap is going to Rashawn McKay. I'm just telling
And
you.
I believe that.
Yeah. I mean, the question is like, who's throwing the ball to Kamari Everett? I mean, Kamari Everett, who's a tight end that's on everybody's first team tight end. I mean, practically everybody's list. Who's throwing the ball to him? Is it going to be Jalen Jones or is it going to be somebody else? And how big could that be for Bethune-Cookman, right? If we expect them to have the kind of success that we expect them to have.
And kind of one comment on the list in general. The Phil Steele list is interesting in that going down to the Senior Bowl and those names being bantied around. If they have good seasons, you're always talking about their draft status. So I think maybe it's important in that regard. But of course, we're still all talking about preseason accolades. So we'll see what happens. I guess you can give it a little bit of credit and whatever, but it's just really how these lists are comprised. So go play ball. Hey, the rest will fall where it may.
Yeah, no, you're right, and some of the names that fall into, I like, for example, here I'll go one further. You mentioned Phil Steele. Phil Steele on his third team punt return, he has Brandon Codrington of North Carolina Central. Third team, first team he has Jamarie Shareed. Box to Row has Brandon Codrington as number 1. And he only did so. I mean, it's one hand washes the other hand or washes the other back. I don't know, whatever the phrase is, but there's so many there's so many All-American preseason All-American polls and then the debate that was going on last week was, should a freshman be on this list, because obviously, who was it? Was it the Stats Perform that actually had Travis Hunter on theirs?
Correct.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you guys talk about that last week? What's your take on that, Jamie?
Yes, we did.
I think it goes with the notoriety and who he is. A little bit of the play in the spring game, but again, that's a glorified practice. So take it for what it's worth, but I understand why. Like, even with everything Travis Hunter is bandied about, whether he was supposed to be invited to media day or whatever and what have you, I think it just depends on preference. At the end of the day, it's a preferred thing, and right now he's that name, so I get it.
All right. Now, here in the Black College Sports Network, we don't do a preseason poll, so it's good. We can kind of look at other people's polls, and we can kind of break their poll down and kind of make comments about their polls. So, the latest poll that's recently been out was the Box to Row top 10 media poll. So this is the media. He does a coaches poll and a media poll. Now, the interesting thing about the media poll, This is an all HBCU thing. So you will have a mix of Division I, Division II, and it's just whoever you think is the best. So I always find it interesting to see how people incorporate the Division IIs who have half as many scholarships into a poll with FCS schools. So the 16th year of the Box to Row media poll administered by From the Press Box to Press Row features none other than you know who, Jackson State, sitting at number 1. Now they finished last year ranked number 3 in this very poll. Number 2 is South Carolina State, who actually earned more first place votes than Jackson State by 8-7. South Carolina State finished number 2, Jamie. So, it kind of, even though they won the Celebration Bowl, they didn't win the Box to Row football media poll. Number 3 in the preseason poll, Florida A&M, who finished 4th last year in this poll. Number 4, who actually received 3 first place votes, is the team that won this poll last year. That's Bowie State. Hey, it is what it is. The Bowie State Bulldogs got 3 first place votes. I'm very curious. I feel like those 3 people must know something that the rest of us don't know. Given all the people that transferred, coach leaving, assistant coach leaving, they must know something we don't. Number 5 is Albany State out of the SIAC. Number 6 is Alabama A&M. 7 is Prairie View. 8 is Alcorn. 9 is Southern. 10, the Aggies. So that's their media poll. Any comments you'd like to throw out there, Jamie?
Nah, not. And it's someone's individual, their formula, the kind of thing that, they want to do, especially when you're combining, divisions. So, it just really depends. In some people's eyes, Bowie State won it all because I think they, went the farthest in black college sports, black college football. So in some people's eyes, I've seen, in the polls they had them number 1. So it just really all depends. I think when you're having these kind of polls, that's especially based on last year's standings, I guess it would be, Bowie State that would be number 1. Because at the end of the day, South Carolina State won the Celebration Bowl. So, I'm wondering, where you get the basis of lining, just these people up. Is it a combination of how they finished or how you think they'll be this year? So again, they're entitled to their opinion.
If you base it on last year, though, wouldn't you say Bowie State overall had a better season than South Carolina State? Especially considering they did get a playoff win, made to the second round, or did they make it to the finals last year? They made so many playoff runs. I can't remember how far they went.
Third round.
They got to the Elite Eight.
They went to the third round.
Yeah,
they got to the third round. So in theory, they picked up 2 playoff wins to South Carolina State's 1 playoff win, i.e. the Celebration Bowl. So if you base it on last year, then yes, Bowie State should have finished number 1. Now, obviously, we know Bowie State lost their 2 corners to Southern. But really, outside of that, everyone else who was supposed to come back for Bowie is coming back, including probably one of the top defensive players in D2 football in Joshua Pryor. So,
yes, sir.
Bowie State is no punk team, as they say. And after talking to them at Media Day and them emphasizing the fact that everybody else is still here, I kind of changed my thoughts about Bowie State from what I had prior to CIAA Media Day.
We'll see what Kyle Jackson does. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see if he can keep that train going.
The only thing about him, He went from chair 3 to chair 2 to chair 1 in about
In 1
60
year.
days.
Yeah, 60,
No, in about 60 days.
about 60 days. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was less than
he was
60
a
days.
defensive coordinator and never called a play. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
DC.
it was less than 60 days. It was more. I thought you said
Yeah.
6 days. It was more like 6
60.
days when he went from chair 3 to 1. It really was. I went back and looked
Went
at
from
the notes
position
on.
coach to DC to head coach. That
Yeah,
fast.
exactly. I don't even think he didn't even get the plaque up on the door that said defensive coordinator, and all of a sudden it was like, oh,
I
I'm
wonder
head
if he
coach
had to
too.
move I wonder if he had to move his office every time, or did they just change the name on the door?
You got jokes. All right, let's. I did. Let me see. What else did we had planned on talking about? Drew, you were actually going to be doing some double duty this upcoming year, as among all of the other things that you do in the
We don't
world,
have an
and
anti-moonlighting policy, do we?
no, we need people working. So we need people working. So you're actually going to be doing writing for d2football.com. You're going to be covering the SIAC beat. So you will be doing what our good friend Chris Ferguson does, covering the CIAA beat. I've long felt that this is right up your alley. Nobody talks about this. Is what I like about what we do is, because of you, we talk about the SIAC probably more than a lot of shows. Oh my God, we have a picture too. How do you get a picture, huh? He gets a picture. Anyway,
Straight off the
congratulations,
website.
d2football.com, the SIAC reporter AD Drew. So now the question is, where will your allegiances lie when it's time to break news? Will you break it with us, or are you going to break it with d2football.com first? What are you going to do?
The articles will go to both. That was one thing I
Okay.
said. I was like, the article will be posted on both website, and we'll mention my name. Mention that fact that I'm with both websites. And Brian, you say, where am I gonna break it at first? Probably gonna depend on what day of the week it is.
There you go. True that. Hey, it's like that sometimes. It's like that. One of your first stories, if I'm not mistaken, is the announcement about the new SIAC commissioner, which you actually broke here 2 weeks ago. It was real quiet under the radar the way it got mentioned, but it's Anthony Holloman, who is now
Yes.
the SIAC commissioner. I believe you worked with him, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard you say this in a couple other places, correct?
Yeah, I worked with him at Tuskegee University doing his tenure there at Tuskegee, and he was he started at Tuskegee. I think he was the director for university advancement, which is basically the fundraising arm for Tuskegee University, before he took over as a interim athletic director. And before he could be named full-time athletic director, because you know how these athletic director searches take, so they could take up to a year, especially at the D2 level. He wound up going to South Carolina State as their athletic director, then coming back to the SIAC with Fort Valley State. And just doing Dr. Holloman, he was Mr. Holloman then, he's Dr. Holloman now. The way that I
Okay.
do, he's always got something up his sleeve, especially when it comes to money. And when I say when it comes to money, that man know how to go out and get some money and to make some deals. So I personally have witnessed it. I've watched what he has done when he has gone to other institutions since he and I worked together. And I say that loosely, that he and I worked together. I was working for another department. I knew where his office was. I would speak to him.
You're on the same
And
floor.
no, I wasn't even on the same side of the campus with that brother. So, but
You both drew a
regardless,
check from Tuskegee.
that's about what we had, and I love for athletics. Those were the two things that we had in common at that point in time. But I actually stopped by his office on Wednesday. He's still at Fort Valley State. I was riding up 75, had some extra time. So I pulled off and went to his office. Only had about a 15, 20-minute conversation because that was all the time that both of us had. But I'm expecting some big things from him when it comes to the SIAC. And when you look at the projection, how he got to his position, look west to Birmingham, Alabama, where the SWAC commissioner's office is, Dr. Charles McClellan, multiple athletic director at multiple institutions, in the conference that he became athletic director in, chair of the athletic directors council for that conference that he became athletic director in. So there are a lot of similarities in his rise and Dr. Charles McClellan's rise. Excuse me, Commissioner Charles McClellan, Dr. Holloman, Commissioner Charles McClellan's rise. Excuse me for getting these terms all confused. But I do want to give these people their proper name and their proper respect as I'm talking about them. So I'm expecting a lot of big things, and by the end of the year, expect something major from the SIAC commissioner's office. That's the inside scoop.
Are you? That's in. Oh,
I'm not breaking it.
So you're gonna leave.
I'm not breaking it. But you got to think about it. He takes over September 1. So you've got 4 months. And what do most people come in with? A 90 to 120 day plan. So I'm expecting something big to come in that first 120 days.
So if it's not conference internal realignment of the teams, I would be disappointed. I would tend to think that
I think that's a no-brainer. I think that's gonna be I think that's gonna be like a minor story compared to some of the stuff that I know Holloman can pull off.
Let me see. I'm trying to think what else is out there. Since you have his ear, Drew, I would like to propose once again a SIAC versus CIAA week, either week 1 or week 2 of the football season. I mean, obviously, we want to draw interest into the region. It gives everybody a region game, and especially if CIAA is playing an 8-game conference schedule now.
Yeah, they've only got 2.
Who knows? Yes, who knows? The SIAC might be moving to something like a 8-game schedule as well.
I've got an opposite proposal of that though, Brian.
An opposite to the SIAC versus CIAA matchup?
No, you said week 1, week 2. Why not week 11?
Okay.
For the team week 11 or week 12 for the teams that don't make the playoffs, have a crossover that week on a Thursday night. Still keep your CIAA championship game on Saturday. Keep your SIAC championship game on Saturday. But on that Thursday night of championship week, have a crossover.
Yeah, that would seem like it would take a lot to figure out how to make that happen, Drew. Don't you? I mean, because essentially you're talking about moving a lot of parts. Let's just say you don't know the teams until after week 10. Then everything has to happen in like a 24-hour period in terms of finding out who's going to play where.
Look, Brian, Tuskegee and Virginia State in 2016 put together a week 11 game in 48 hours. I think if the conferences get together, they can coordinate some stuff like this.
It can happen. I love how you keep bringing that up.
For the non-playoff teams. The one thing is you want to make sure that your next best team who's not in the championship game, those 2 teams have to play. Everybody else, you can kind of go for geography. Because one of those teams could have an outside chance of making the playoffs. Like
I would have killed
State last year.
Yeah, I would have killed to see Bowie State and Albany State play like for the last couple of years. So I think those crossover games, even if you play them, I would probably say put them to more towards the front of the season. Even if it is a year later, I would have loved to see those teams still go at it at the beginning of this year, perhaps. And I know there are some crossover games going on. I know, I think Benedict's playing Elizabeth City or Johnson C. Smith, one of them. So, we'll see. But I would love to see more of those matchups.
All right. So Drew, I guess
any other ideas you want me to get to Dr. Holloman?
That's the big one. I've been pushing for the SIC. You know what? And let's do it during basketball season. I mean, let's tie this in. I mean, you have a opportunity to. Yeah, let's tie this into an all sport thing. Make it a cross commissioners cup thing. I don't know. If it can happen between the Big 12 and the SEC and the ACC and the Big 10, I think it can happen easily between between the SIAC and the CIAA.
Now, last year they did have a CIAA SIAC challenge or crossover in November in basketball, and I believe it was in Atlanta. And I forgot where the CIAA city was, because SIAC hosted in Atlanta, and can't remember where the CIAA hosted there.
I think it was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't really publicized as such.
That was the problem.
Okay. You just had to kind of put two and two together and see that all these things.
You had to look at the schedule and see the notes on the bottom of somebody's schedule. CIAA SIAC challenge or crossover, whatever they call it.
That's what I'm saying. Let's move. Look, you could do this in football, volleyball, basketball, men and women's, softball. Ooh, can you do it in baseball? I don't know if you can do it in baseball. Yeah, can you do it?
CIAA doesn't sponsor baseball.
CIAA, they don't sponsor.
So I guess it would end with softball then, right?
No, bro. Can we have a track meet? Can we have a track meet?
What?
St. Aug. I would love to see St. Aug against some of those SIAC teams.
I'm with it.
Look, at some. All right, look. So Drew, you got.
Wait a minute, St. Aug will get somebody at the new Morehouse Stadium.
Hey, that'd be a great place to put it.
About 4 of them at the new Morehouse Stadium, where they got the track.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be a brand new track.
Exactly. All right. So there's you got something. Next time you have a conversation with Dr. Holloman, Drew, you got something that you can go to him with, and you can come out. You can come at him with that. Hey, on next week's show, we're going to get into a little bit of breaking down some of the top FCS versus FBS matchups that are happening in week 0, 1, 2, and 3. We'll also talk about the non-conference schedule in the FCS, and even it's a little bit different in the under D1 level, but we will get into talking about some of those games. I've already kind of tipped my hand a little bit as to one non-conference FCS game I'm looking at, and that's the North Dakota State, North Carolina A&T. But it's not the only one out there in terms of non-conference games to be excited about, and I think all of those, and we're talking primarily whether it be HBCU versus HBCU or HBCU versus PWI. We'll kind of break all of that down on next week's show. Might even reveal the BCSN Power Rankings, the preseason rankings. Again, we don't do polls. We do rankings. We let other people do polls and combine all 50 some odd schools. We let the other people do all that. We divide it up, let the computers do the talking, and then everybody gets them set. Still, when the numbers tell you who the champion should be, guys like Jamie come in and say, "Well, it was at the Celebration Bowl, though." So, hey, any final thoughts or anything you want to get in there, Jamie, before we close it up for tonight?
Nah, man. Hey, thanks for having me on once again, man. And listen, I'm happy y'all let me talk a little bit of swag football as well.
You always have a place here, Jamie, no matter what they say in them Twitter streets. Drew, final words.
Hey, unfortunately, this is that time of the year over the next 2 weeks where one of our teams, who we project to be a top finisher, will lose someone due to an injury, a preseason injury. So let's hope that these guys stay healthy until the season starts so that these teams that we project to be good will at least have the opportunity to live up to the hype. I'm not saying they will, but I want to see everybody go into the season with full strength and not already on the number 3 quarterback or the number 3 wide receiver or things of that nature. So, and for those teams with quarterback competitions, let's watch these scrimmages over these next 2 weeks and see who separates themselves as the leader of the packs. Because seems like Miak is fine. Miak is fine. Most of their teams have a returning starter. I think everybody is pretty much gone in the CIAA. Looks like the CIAA will have new starters. Probably 8 of the 12 in the SWAC will have new starters. And looks like probably about 50% of the SIAC will have new starting quarterbacks. So let's see who separates themselves over the next 2 weeks. Jamie, I know Jamie gonna keep us up in the Twitterverse with that information though.
Man, you know it. You know what I'm gonna do, man. Like I said, we gonna continue to keep it. You know, I like the social media space, man. It gives people a lot of time to banter. But I'm just curious to see what the football is actually gonna look like at the very end of the day. I love talking ball, so you know, let's see what happens, man. Hey, what we got? 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
3.
It is 3 weeks. Actually, 20 days from week 0.
Exactly. Yep. Hey, I'll end with 2 quick points. One, volleyball camps are opening up this week. Volleyball practices begin on Tuesday for most of the schools. Volleyball has a weird rule in which they only get 17 days or 17 practices before the start of the season. Very odd. We're used to almost a full month of football, right? But here's volleyball that's not a contact sport, and they get less time than football. Make that make sense for me, people, because I really can't. But anyway, volleyball camps are opening up this week. So we'll kind of maybe keep our eyes open to some preseason predictions or talk about volleyball next week. And also, schools are starting back this week, or if a lot of them started last week. So just a reminder, be patient out on the roads, especially early in the morning, because they got bus stops in strange places. Be mindful of the bus. Don't try to zip around the bus. There's somebody's kid or child that might be trying to cross the street or just not paying attention. You remember how you were as a child. You remember how kids are. So be patient. Leave a little earlier if you can, because traffic is definitely going to pick up. I know in my town, I start school on Tuesday. Jamie, you're already back at school. Drew, you're already back at school. So let's be safe out here on the streets, the real streets, the streets that matter, where our kids are walking and going back to school, getting on the buses, and let's be productive. Let's be good citizens to one another. Let's encourage these young people to go to school and learn something. Encourage them to go home and make an effort to learn one thing. If it's one thing, just learn one thing every day. We'll be a lot better off in society. That's going to do it for tonight's show. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us as always. Shout out to our producer, Roy. Thank you, everybody in the chat rooms, for joining us. Hit that like button on your way out the door, and Facebook as well. We appreciate you. Please go download the Jericho Broadcast Network's app, which you can find on the Google or Apple Play Store. Just search My JBN, My BCSN is where you can find it. And you can get all of our shows that appear during the week on the Black College Sports Network. And also make sure you're following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MyBCSN1, the number 1. And go download that BCSN Pod Zone. Look for it everywhere that you listen and download podcasts. So for AD Drew, Jamie Walker, I'm Brian Fulford, and our producer Roy. Thank you for watching. Be safe. God bless, and good night. Peace out.
Holla.
But earmuff, you stay on hard.